Well, hello there. Keith Johnson here, and I'm here with two ladies who are very, very familiar with the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast here. We're here with Deb Vickers, certainly no stranger to this house and its history. And Sue, what's your last name again?
Vickery.
Vickery, yeah. We don't want to mix the two last names up. Exactly. So, what have you experienced? I know that's a loaded question because you're so familiar with this place and the history of it. And let's just talk about the history of the place for now. How this all came to be the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast.
Well, years ago, Martha McGinn, her grandma actually lived here. This was her home, and she inherited it from her grandma, and she was the original person that had turned it into the bed and breakfast. And it's kind of funny because she had a lot of stories as well from when she was a child, when she grew up here. So it's been, you know, I think the activity's been going on for quite some time. So, but it's a great house. We have a lot of activity even on our daytime tours. I've gotten touched a lot on my tour around my neck. And it's kind of funny during the day because you kind of have to pretend nothing happened because you know, you're in the middle of doing a tour. But it's a lot of fun. We see orbs with our own eyes. One of my tours, now this was during the day, I was coming down the stairs and a woman came down ahead of me. And she actually saw an apparition of a woman dressed in hairy clothing walk across the kitchen. Yeah, so she was shaken up, but she was excited at the same time. She's like, I want to come back, but I don't. She's like, I don't know what I want. But that was really neat. I've gotten whispers in my ears. We get a lot of EVP in the house as well. We hear footsteps. We see a shadow figure. There's just a lot of claims. I like it because I'm a paranormal investigator, so for me that's it's fun. I get to work here and I get to experience all that and investigate, and so, you know, it's nice. It's kind of like a whole package.
So a general tour that you're giving could be a paranormal investigation as well.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, because people get touched on our tours. Yeah, so it's kind of it's a nice mix, and it's nice the history and the paranormal kind of blends together on a tour, so it's fun. I enjoy both, you know, and they do go together. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. We do. Last night we did a little investigation. People came and they got the history and the paranormal tour, and then we investigated till 11. So that was a lot of fun. So we will do things like that as well, you know. But it's pretty fun.
Excellent.
I love it. Sue's got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, what have you experienced
She's
here?
here way more than I am, so she has a lot of really cool
I kind of get picked on in this house. So,
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, I have a lot of experiences in this house.
Yes.
I've had black mist form right in front of me in the master bedroom,
Is that
and
so?
then follow me up to the attic. And I had a woman speak in my ear on a daytime tour, out loud. 6 guests sitting in front of us heard her.
Really? What did she say?
I don't know, it was 2 quick words, but the second word was either you two or my name's Sue. It had that ring to it. So it was unexpected. So.
Yeah.
And just the other night on my tour, I had 14 people in Lizzie's bedroom, and a little girl at the top of the staircase said, "Mom," in a questioning voice. Oh yeah, everybody heard her. It was very loud. I've been growled in my ear in the basement.
That's unnerving.
Oh yeah, that was unnerving. Chip Coffee happened to come to the house later on. He told me he felt it was Andrew trying to scare me out of that part of the basement. So it's possible.
Right.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
So, what else happened to me?
Well, how often are you alone here?
Well, when you're the night tour guide,
Yeah.
you tend to be alone more often because the guests, when they first arrive, they go out to eat. So a lot of times they don't come back until right before 8 o'clock.
Right.
So you're in the house pretty much from 4 to 8 o'clock sometimes alone.
Really?
Yeah.
How often are you alone here, Deb?
Pretty much the same when I do the evening tours. Yep. Yeah. I only work part-time, so I'm not here a lot.
Right. It has to be different, though. One thing when you're with a bunch of people and you're on a tour, or you're staying overnight. But what about being alone? That's a very different feeling, I would think.
I don't know. I'm always comfortable because I've been here for so long. Because I've been here for 10 years, so it's like my second home. So I don't
So you
really-
would say that you
I-
feel welcome here?
Well, I always do, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I sleep here and
I'd have to say,
Pretty good?
well, to a degree though.
Yeah.
In the house I feel okay, but down the basement, not so much by myself. No.
Yeah, the basement's kind of creepy.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
last
it
time I
is.
was down there
There's
by
a lot
myself
of
by the
stuff that-
bulkhead door
Yes,
was the second time I got growled in my ear.
yeah.
Yeah.
The basement's a little creepy.
Yes, I've heard
I
that
mean-
the more unpleasant activity usually takes place in the basement.
It seems like that, right? Yeah.
And that could be because that's where they're going to get away from us. Who knows?
Maybe.
Is that what you would attribute it to?
I don't know.
That's what I'm gonna attribute it to.
Because we have to go down there because we get
Exactly.
cookies
I have
out
to
of the
work.
fridge or
Yeah.
whatever, full of laundry or
Yeah.
whatever. So we have to go down there. So
Yeah.
I mean,
I did hear that a previous owner of this house was downstairs doing laundry, and she turned around and there was a kind of an apparition, but it was like see-through, it wasn't solid, of a woman in a dress.
yep.
Yeah, I've
I
heard
think that
that.
was Martha.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Martha McGinn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the sitting room. This is where we start our tours. When we come into Lizzie's, we talk about the murders. We talk about who was here that morning. We talk about how Lizzie was acquitted. Her trial took place in New Bedford, Massachusetts. She had an all-male jury, and she was actually acquitted within 1 hour. So that's we kind of talk about a little bit of history of the house, how the house used to be a two-family. Mr. Borden was the one that actually converted it to a one-family home. Mr. Borden was very thrifty. The house didn't have any gas lighting, no electricity, and no bathrooms. They had a basement privy, barn privy, and then commodes throughout the house. So he was very thrifty. He didn't. The only thing he did do, though, and I thought this was pretty smart on his part, he did have a furnace put in, and he installed all the radiators himself.
Did he really?
Yep.
Wow.
So it was cold New England winters. So
Mm-hmm. So he was quite the handyman as well.
he was. He actually helped Southern Miller to build this house.
Did he?
Yep.
Interesting.
So he knew it was a good house.
Mhm. Now, you mentioned your first paranormal experience was right here in this room.
Right in this parlor. I had just let some people in the front door. They were sitting down, and I was about to speak, and a woman spoke right in my ear. I mean, I jumped a mile. So loud, all 6 people heard her as well. They're like, "Oh my God, who's that?" I have no idea.
I imagine you jumped in.
I did, yeah. It was unexpected. Yeah.
Right, can't prepare for that.
No.
Now, what happened historically in this particular room?
Well, it was 2 days after the murders, and we have pictures of them. City Marshal Rufus Hilliard, Mayor John Corcoran came to inform Lizzie that she was suspected of killing her father and her stepmother. So after that, they had a coroner's inquest at the Central Police Station, but none of that was allowed to be used at trial due to a legal loophole. But then enough came out where she was arrested and she was sent to a Taunton prison to be held for 10 months awaiting her trial. So in this room, this is where they sat.
I see.
And this is
Interesting.
where, she was told she was the suspect.
Yeah, this is the room they would have received their guests into. This was more the formal parlor. So yeah, they told her she was the prime suspect right here.
Right. Now, was Lizzie actually coherent at the time? Because her testimony was later disregarded because supposedly she'd been under sedatives that her doctor gave her.
That's partly true. She was under the sedatives from the doctor, but that is not why her testimony was disregarded. She was actually not allowed any representation.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, this is where they had their final breakfast, their 3-day-old cold mutton broth, their Johnny Cakes molasses cookies, and bananas. And this is also actually the same room where they did Abby's autopsy. Mr. Borden's autopsy was done in the sitting room next door, but Mrs. Borden's autopsy was actually done here in the dining room. And we also have antique undertaker boards, so you can see, because it was rumored it was done on the dining room table. But the dining room table is actually pushed up against the east wall, and they would have set up one of these undertaker boards. And this is where we show our autopsy photos. So, because we do talk about the autopsies. I'm always flipping this around, I always get. So this is Mr. Borden, and you can't make out the left side of his face.
No, it's,
And then for Mrs. Borden, you can see all the wounds in the back of her skull. So we kind of talk about the autopsies and, why they tested for poison. Abby hadn't been feeling well for quite a few days up until the day of the murders, and she was afraid someone had been trying to poison them. She went across the street to the family doctor, Dr. Bowen. He said, "Oh, don't worry, you're just suffering from summer sickness," which is today what we call food poisoning. Now, they ate a lot of old meat because Mr. Bowen didn't want to waste anything, but keep in mind, they didn't have any electricity to keep that food cold. All they had was that little ice box. But there was one other reason that they tested for poison. Allegedly, the day before the murders, Lizzie went to a pharmacist named Eli Vance, and we have his picture in the middle in that little oval photograph there. And she tried to purchase pruic acid, which is a very deadly poison. So he, of course, refused to sell it to her, but on the day of the murders, he went to the police and told them what had happened. But like the inquest testimony, that was also thrown out at trial. The judge ruled that just because you tried to purchase poison the day before your parents were murdered does not actually prove that you murdered them.
all right. And I believe her excuse for buying that poison was to clean a sealskin cape. She wanted to clean some stains off it or something, but he, as you mentioned, he wouldn't sell it to her.
No, and that's not something you would use to clean a cape.
Right, I wouldn't think so.
Oh my God, you're really banged up, huh? Okay. And then we'll get the other one. Looks like the letter Z in her head. Okay.
So we just left the dining room. I did have one experience in there on my daytime tour. We do get a lot of things. Someone ran a finger right down my neck. And then for the next 5 minutes, I kept going like this, trying to reenact it, and everybody was looking at me weird, like, what is she doing? So I finally had to tell them, I'm trying to see if I could reenact what happened to me. But it really was, a finger went right down my neck while I was giving my tour in the dining room. But this is the sitting room. This is where the body of Andrew was found. That morning, he was on the couch right there. We actually have a picture of the crime scene. We show that when we come in. But it was a very brutal murder. Andrew was hit a total of 10 to 11 times to the left side of the face, one blow cutting his eyeball in half. His eyeball was hanging out on his cheek, one blow severing his nose completely from his face. Now, Lizzie claims that she was out in the barn eating pears while this was going on, and that she came back in the house and discovered her father lying right there on the couch. So it was a very brutal murder.
And it would have been lying right here. This is a replica of the hatchet that may have been a murder weapon. His head would have been here, correct? And the way he's positioned, he's reclining here and his legs are hanging off the side there. Now, Andrew had arrived home not realizing that his wife Abby was upstairs already murdered. And he came to the front door. I believe the front door was locked. And he may have been a little disconcerted to see that the front door was locked. He was not feeling well himself and he'd come home early. And Bridget Sullivan went to unlock the door. Bridget Sullivan testified that while she was opening the door, she swears she heard Lizzie laughing upstairs. Something.
Well, the maid had just sworn. She kind of fumbled with the third lock on the door, so she swore in Gaelic. And it was right after that swear that she heard Lizzie laughing at the top of the staircase.
Is that so?
Yes.
Well, this room has a lot of activity as well. We were investigating here one night, just a few of us that worked here, and we were actually seeing the orbs with our own eyes shooting across the room. So we do get a lot of activity in this room as well. Do you want to talk about some of your stuff in this room?
I was using a spirit box in this room one night for a house full of women. There were no men in the house at all. And I was trying to get Andrew to speak for the guests, so I said, Andrew, if you want me to leave, tell me to leave. Well, in a male voice, I got a full sentence over the spirit box say, why would you leave? Yeah, so that was
Really?
pretty cool, because it's almost virtually impossible to get a whole sentence come over the spirit box like that,
Mhm.
in the same voice, yeah. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that was pretty much a direct response to what I had said.
Yeah, and we were, so my daughters and I are DLH Paranormal,
Mhm.
Deb, Laura, and Heather are my daughters, Deb, Laura, and Heather. But we were doing a little investigation here last night at the house, the tour and investigation kind of combo, and Sue had, remember how you had mentioned you heard the little girl on the stairs, she was doing her tour, and the little girl said, "Mommy." So we took the REM pod, we were just all sitting in here, and we put the REM pod, which goes off from
Mhm.
activity, and we had put it on the front stairs, and we left it, and we came back and we sat over here, and it started to go off like crazy. So we went over to check it out, and I said, "Let me do an EVP," and I said, "Was that the little girl that said mommy the other night?" And I heard, "Yeah," just like that. So that was pretty cool. It was, oh, another thing that was cool now, we do get a lot of EVP. One night, my little friend Emma, for her 16th birthday, all she wanted to do was come here and go sun with me. So Leanne said, "Oh, fine, just, bring her and her mom over." And there was a tour going on around the house. So we were just sitting over there, and Leanne was in the kitchen. Leanne, the owner, was chopping up her vegetables. And I just had my voice recorder going, and I said, "Mr. Borden," I said, "what do you think about what Leanne's doing in there?" And he's like, I caught a clear EVP. "I'm watching." That's really cool. That was like a Class A EVP, so,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah, he responds quite often. You can tell it's him because he has a gravelly voice.
You can always tell his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, even on the spirit box, you can always tell his voice.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Abby comes through a lot in this one for me too.
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. I think they're used to us too, and again, when you're with them all the time, they get to know you as well. So I think they'll respond to us a little bit more than they would a stranger,
Mhm.
because they see us all the time.
They're used to you being here.
Yeah.
Your presence.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we usually move into your front hallway.
The clock's out, right, in other words?
Oh, no, I thought that.
You're on the road show?
Yes.
Yes, you're on the road show, yes. I have that recorded somewhere.
They made it fun. I was really nervous before, but they made me feel so comfortable in the road show. They just made it fun, like a
Oh, yeah, they always do.
It was really fun.
We had Brendan Kirby on our show. Yeah, no, this is human.
He had us on his show. That's okay, but thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I wish I didn't have to go because
I'll
all my
relay-
cool stories are upstairs.
I'll relay your stories.
Thank you for your participation. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
lending your
These
knowledge and.
classes worked great. I didn't have to put my high beams on,
I
even
told
on
you,
the
keep them,
highway.
keep them. You're doing
Aw,
highway driving.
thanks,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. She
It
keep
was
me
nice
nice.
meeting you all.
Nice meeting you, and I'm sure you'll see you again. And I hope you get a picture of
Is
this.
this just like a period piece?
Yeah, just
The
kind
time
of.
period, so it didn't belong to any of the family?
No.
Right. Right, but it is something that was fashionable at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Looks very much like a summer dress. I love this painting of her there.
Yeah, she looks so sweet, doesn't she?
Yes, so sweet and innocent there.
She does. But this hallway's interesting as well. We have the same 3 locks on there that were on there back then, and we actually have a picture, which is, I think is so cool, because it's a crime scene photo that shows the 3 locks, and I always show the guests, look, that's exactly where we're standing now. So, I think that's pretty cool. These stairs have had a lot of activity.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, just looking up the stairs here, you can just visualize that Bridget Sullivan lets out that Gaelic expletive, and she hears Lizzie laugh from upstairs. Very eerie scene.
Every time I say that, I guess it's creeped out. Lizzie's laughing top of the stairs, like, But it's kind of cool because that day, after they discovered Mr. Borden on the couch, Lizzie was standing at the side door looking really upset, and Bridget was running around trying to find the doctor. So the neighbor, Mrs. Churchill from next door, she was on that side of the house. She came over to see what was going on. And then after a while, they realized they didn't know Miss Borden was. So Bridget said, well, I will go and look, but I'm not
going up there by myself. So Mrs. Churchill offered to go with her. So I always tell the guests, when you get almost to the top of the stairs, look to the left to get an idea of what they saw when they saw the dead body of Mrs. Borden on the opposite side of the bed, because you can actually see underneath the bed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And Bridget, of course, was feeling under the weather that morning too, as well, correct?
yeah, she hadn't been feeling well either.
Mhm.
So,
I don't know if the 3-day-old mutton had anything to do with that, but it was a very, very hot time of the year.
I'm sure it had everything to do with that.
yeah, that was,
Now, Bridget, I believe she was referred to fondly by the family as Maggie.
the girls called her Maggie, yep.
Yeah, they had another servant before then whose name was Maggie, and the nickname stuck.
You did your research. He's really good.
Love the story.
He's quite the historian.
Nice, I love it.
Now, did she resent that being called? Do you think she resented that being called Maggie?
I think she probably would have. I mean,
Not a lot she could say about it, I'm sure.
I would have resented it.
What's her name?
It's my name, you know, yeah. Do you guys want to head up?
Sure. Lead the way, please.
Okay. Right about here is where you want to look to the left, and you'll see right underneath the bed where Mrs. Borden was.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
See it?
I do see it. Yeah. Okay. So she was found under the bed.
Well, she was actually found right here. This is
Oh,
the spot where she was
okay.
found. Yeah.
But you could see her through the bed. Gotcha.
Yep. Nice.
Do people actually sleep in this bed?
They do.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, for a while. It was funny because we had a lot of honeymoon couples that wanted this suite. And they would sleep on the floor right here.
Right there.
One of them, they were going to name their first child Lizzie, or their
Really?
first girl. Yeah. Yeah, we have a
I
lot
had a
of Lizzie
real
fans.
interest to do that.
We have a lot of hardcore Lizzie fans.
I've heard that you've come in and when nobody's here, that you've seen impressions on the bed. Is that true?
I haven't, but other people have. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Nice bed warmer there for the
Yep.
winter time.
Mhm.
And of course, there's Elizabeth Montgomery's dress
Yep.
she wore.
The Legend of Lizzie Borden.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know, it was kind of ironic as well that after she did the movie, she found out she was related to Lizzie,
Really?
a distant cousin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty.
And that was after she did the movie.
After she did the movie, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, this is the room and Abby Borden's bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where her body was found, right there
Yeah.
on the floor. And there's a photo of it right there.
Mm-hmm.
There's John Morse, who some people believe him to be a suspect in the homicides, although he was never charged.
Yeah.
What was his relation exactly?
He was Mr. Borden's brother-in-law from his previous wife. Yeah, so he was the girl's uncle.
Okay.
And he was at first considered a suspect, but eventually they decided it was probably the same person who committed both murders. He was no longer ever considered a suspect again, and he also had given himself a solid alibi on his way back here that morning from visiting his relatives.
Mhm.
He met and introduced himself to the 6 different priests and memorized the collector's cat number. So he did have an anti-alibi for the time when Mr. Borden was murdered.
I see.
So it was a little tricky.
And of course, right here is where Abby's body was.
Yep. Abby was found right here. Her murder was quite brutal as well. She was hit a total of 19 times to the face and the head, one along her back between her shoulder blades, and it was thought that perhaps the first blow came to the left side of her face, didn't actually penetrate the skull, just peeled back that flap of skin. She then most likely fell to the ground where her murderer straddled her and gave her another 18 whacks.
So she knew it was happening. She knew it was coming.
Yes. Yep. And it's kind of cool, because in this picture, you can see the camera that took the actual crime scene photos, and it was only the second time in history they ever took crime scene photos. The first time was the Jack the Ripper case. And then you see how the blood was somewhat congealed on
Yes.
the rug. It was between that and the stomach contents that they were somehow able to pinpoint her time of death to be about 9:30, which is about an hour and a half before Mr. Borden.
And that's the other photo of her body there.
Yep.
Now, Gary DeMoranville has just joined us. He is of Ghost Chasers right here in Fall River, Massachusetts. Now, Gary, back when you were Annex Paranormal, you and your co-founder, Robin Medeiros, were the first local group to actually come in here and investigate.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And the things we all individually experienced was cinema, and there was some stuff that was separated from what I was feeling. But when we came into this very room, shortness of breath, chest pains, dizziness, Robin picked up some music, an orchestra playing right over here. As a matter of fact, right here, she heard an orchestra. And the music was playing, but we didn't hear it. And when we played back the EVP, there was, it sounded like a full orchestra. And, you know, we asked Leanne, has there been any music? Anybody playing the radio or music or anything? She said, no, there's no music here. But by gosh, there's a piano downstairs in the front room, in the center room, which we also heard playing, but there was nobody at it. You know, so this is going to be a great investigation. If you guys need equipment, I can probably lend you something if you haven't got anything.
Okay.
Do you have equipment?
We have some, yes. we
Oh,
have some.
so you're all set.
Well, thank you, Gary,
Yes,
for
and
stopping by. Now, here we are in Lizzie Borden's room.
Yep. Yep.
What can you tell me about this place?
Well, when Mr. Borden purchased the property, Lizzie was 11 and Emma was 21. So it was thought that the older daughter should have the larger room, but for her 30th birthday, Lizzie went on the grand tour of Europe. And she was gone for 19 weeks, and when she came back, she had a lot of mementos from her trip. She felt as though she should have the larger room, and Emma agreed, and they traded. So the small little room to the side was actually Emma's little room at the time of the murders. This was the door to the master bedroom. This was kept locked at all times. Mr. and Mrs. Borden had a bolt latch on their side. The girls had their hook and eye on this side, and Lizzie actually used to keep her bed kitty corner up against this door. But there's a back stairway. So when Mr. and Mrs. Borden wanted to go up to their rooms, they would take the back stairway, and when the girls came up, they would take the front stairway.